The Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys just had their second match of the season, and despite Philadelphia coming out on top in the first game, the Dallas Cowboys just blew out the Philadelphia Eagles with a score of 33-13. And there is a lot to take from this game, from both the Cowboys' perspective, but also the Philadelphia Eagles' perspective. So I'm going to be doing a couple of things in this video. Number one, we're just going to talk about the game. Number two, we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. And number three, we're going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to answer so many different questions and just talk about so many different points. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's go ahead and start off by talking about this game. Like I said earlier, the Dallas Cowboys won with a score of 33-13, and they kind of had their number the entire game. The Eagles were outcoached, they were outplayed, they were out physical, they were out everything. And ultimately, that falls back to a lot of different pieces. Obviously, their head coach, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, this defense, so on and so forth. And everyone's going to sit here and blame the defense, and honestly, rightfully so, but nobody's going to sit here and blame this offense, but they honestly should. The first person to blame is Jalen Hurts. He just didn't play amazing. He played like an average quarterback. On the day, he was 18 for 27 for 197 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He did have one lost fumble though, which kind of shifted the momentum back to Dallas in that situation. And truth be told, he just wasn't special. He also wasn't special last week against San Francisco. AJ Brown, despite having 9 catches for 94 yards, it didn't really feel like he was doing a whole lot. Outside of one really big catch, he was kind of quiet the entire night, and in fact, he was kind of getting destroyed by Stephon Gilmore at points. And AJ Brown had the lost fumble. Devontae Smith did not have a great game either. He had 5 catches for 73 yards, but again, his impact wasn't that much. He also had a lost fumble, but there was a couple drops he had as well. The biggest quote-unquote drop that he had was that touchdown drop, but I don't think it was that great of a throw. It was a tad bit overthrown on that one. And outside of like 1 or 2 drives, this offense was not very good the entire day. They couldn't really effectively run outside of quarterback draws, and whenever they did get a drive going, the turnovers were what was really killing those drives. Now, I can already hear it right now in the comment section or any Philadelphia Eagles fan's mouth. The turnovers lost us the game. We would have won this game without the turnovers. Could not disagree more. Because sure, had they went down there and put up a couple points, they probably could have potentially put up maybe 20 or plus more points. But you're trying to tell me that you were going to slow down this Dallas Cowboys offense? That was not happening. Dallas honestly didn't even capitalize on a lot of the turnovers. There was one where I think they went 3 and out. I think they had a field goal on another one and maybe a touchdown off of one more. So it wasn't like Dallas was 3 for 3 and just really cruising because of these turnovers. Dallas was driving. They had multiple long drives from the 25-yard line to the touchdown. And Dallas had multiple chances to really open the floodgates. Had Dallas played a little bit better, especially offensively with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, they could have won this game even more. And that goes back to this Philadelphia Eagles defense, which I have not addressed yet. Now, in a recent video I uploaded, I talked about this Philadelphia Eagles defense having fraudulent tendencies. And well, I received a lot of hate from that comment. So much so that I got called a middle school journalist, which I think is funny. I've never claimed to be a journalist, but I'll take the compliment. But in that video, I mainly talked about how this defense, outside of the defensive line, and especially in the linebacking core, safety room, and cornerback room, is very fraudulent. And I think my point was made in this game. Now, I don't want to hear any excuses about this team having a rough stretch of games going up against multiple teams, which of course is the case. But every single NFL team is up to this point playing super tough competition, and there is not a single team out there that is 100% healthy. So to make the excuse that your defense is underperforming because they're tired is kind of funny. I think it's time that Philadelphia Eagles fans admit their defense is not that great. Outside of their front four and guys like Kevin Byard and Darius Slay, it's not that good. They have a couple of decent players here and there, but they're not special enough to make up for the deficiencies of this defense. Schematically speaking, they're underperforming, and then personnel-wise, they don't have the guys out there to perform at a high level. And while Shaq Leonard is going to fix some of the problems along the linebacking group, he's kind of a washed up version of what he used to be. So I don't know if his impact is ever going to be able to be that great. Now I'll get back to Philadelphia here in just a little bit, but let's go ahead and talk about the Dallas Cowboys part of things, because Dallas took care of business and they did a lot of more of what they've been doing these past couple weeks. Dak Prescott played really clean, efficient football. On the day, he was 24 for 39 for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I would say over the course of the last several weeks, I would say this is one of Dak's weaker performances. There were a couple drops, there were a couple bad throws by Dak, but I think if Dak had hit those throws, his stats could have been through the roof. This was also a game where the running game was surprisingly pretty well and effective this week. Rico Dowdle had 12 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown. Tony Pollard had 16 carries for 59 yards and no touchdown. And while those numbers don't pop off the screen, it's a lot better than what it has been in weeks past. And there were certain drives where the Dallas Cowboys were really relying on this running game to set up their play action and have long, effective drives that took 5 to 6 minutes off the clock. And in those drives, they did exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles did to them just a few weeks ago. Speaking of the last time that these two teams played, CeeDee Lamb had a great game that week. He also had a decent game this week. This week, he has 6 catches for 71 yards and 1 touchdown, but the big highlight player this week, Jake Ferguson. Ferguson is slowly and surely becoming one of the better tight ends in the NFL. He had 5 catches for 72 yards and 0 touchdowns, but he made multiple big play after big play. And it's been like that over and over these past couple weeks. He is a star in the making, and I'm honestly excited to see what he can do in the future. The last thing I briefly want to talk about this Dallas Cowboys team, Shaq shout out to the offensive line. They played damn good. They only gave up 3 sacks, but a couple of those were just because Dak was holding onto the ball a little bit too long. And there's a couple reasons why the offensive line played a ton better this week than the last time they played. Mike McCarthy and this offensive coordinator had a game plan. They rarely let Terrence Steele go one-on-one with Hassan Reddick. There was a lot of chipping, a lot of double teams, and a lot of extra bodies to help out with the protection. I don't know how many times this happened, but I think there was about maybe 5 times where a tight end chipped a guy either completely off his line of direction or just completely to the ground. It's something that oftentimes doesn't get complimented enough about a certain head coach, but you got to give Mike McCarthy credit for building a game plan to help this offensive line that struggled mightily last time they played them. Now onto the defensive side of things. Man, this defense played good. On the day, they only gave up 2 field goals the entire night. They also came away with 3 turnovers and kind of bodied this Philadelphia Eagles offense. This is the same Philadelphia Eagles offense that just a few weeks ago put 28 points up on your defense and was pretty easily able to drive on them. This week, they weren't having none of that. They were able to force turnovers, generate some punts, get some 3 and outs, so on and so forth. They were able to do a lot of really good things. Probably the most impressive thing they were able to do this week was to get pressure on Jalen Hurts. Sure, they only came away with 1 total sack, but ultimately the amount of pressures was crazy. You can tell that Jalen Hurts was not comfortable with what was going on out there because defensively speaking, the Dallas Cowboys were sending a ton of pressure as well as disguising a lot of coverages. The Cowboys were willing to let Stephon Gilmore go one-on-one with AJ Brown, and it kind of showed that it worked out for them. Micah Parsons, while he only had 1 sack, had multiple generated pressures, and also give credit to guys like DeMarcus Lawrence and Deron Bland, who were really solid the entire night. Overall, this was a great team effort for the Dallas Cowboys and one of their most dominant performances we've seen in recent years. This is the same Dallas Cowboys defense that just last week was having a shootout with the Seattle Seahawks. So for this Dallas Cowboys defense to learn from their mistakes of their last couple games is very impressive. So when we take a small step back and kind of look at the landscape of the NFC East, it does more than likely appear that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to end up winning it as long as they win out. I do think that is more likely going to happen because their schedule is super easy coming up. Barring some big time collapse, they're going to end up more than likely as a number 2 seed, with Dallas of course being the number 5 seed. I still think this Philadelphia Eagles team has a ton of problems, especially on the defense and honestly schematically offensively as well. Do I think Philadelphia is going to be a first round exit? Probably not. But do I think Philadelphia can go out there in the playoffs and beat a team like Dallas or San Francisco? I don't know right now. I think offensively they have the talent to match up with any single team any given night, and I'm not going to let a 2-game sample size cloud my judgment of how good this Eagles team can be. They are still firmly in the Super Bowl race, but I just think right now they took a small step back for me this week. Whereas the Dallas Cowboys have taken that next step. Offensively, they're playing a lot better. And like I predicted just a few weeks ago when I made my Dallas Cowboys video, they're playing better and they're getting better every single week. Now, Dallas has a tough schedule moving forward. They obviously just got done playing Seattle and Philadelphia, but now they have the Buffalo Bills at Buffalo next week, which I don't know how Dallas is going to perform in that cold weather. They're usually playing at an indoor stadium down here in Dallas. And they have to face the Miami Dolphins at their home stadium. And while I think Dallas has the personnel to match up offensively, personnel defensively is a little bit shaky because they don't really have any speed corners who can match the speed of a guy like Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. What I will say though is their linebacking core is playing better and they're going to have to play a pivotal game, especially in coverage against that team. So we'll kind of wait and see. We'll probably talk more about that as it comes closer. And then they go play Detroit here in Dallas, which I think should be a pretty easy game. By the way, have a Detroit Lions video coming very soon. And then to end the season off, they face the Washington Commanders down there in Washington. What I will say about that Washington game is that I could potentially see Dallas resting their starters, especially if they have no chance of moving up or moving down. If that is the case, expect Dallas to go out there and rest Dak Prescott and some of these receivers and defensive players because they're going to need a rest after this brutal schedule they have going on. So for Philadelphia, here's the thing. As long as you handle your business, you're going to win the NFC East and you're going to be sitting perfectly fine where you're at. Do you have problems defensively? 1000%, but you have to get this offense checked up as well. AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, the offensive line, the running game, it has to be better. Schematically speaking, both offensively and defensively, it has to be better. Because if those issues are not addressed over the course of the next 4 weeks, they're going to have a very tough playoff run. That is not me saying they're going to lose in the playoffs and not make a Super Bowl. They definitely can still do that, but they're going to need some help along the way. But you guys tell me, what did you guys think about this really interesting game? Do you guys think Dallas is just genuinely much better than the Philadelphia Eagles right now? And do you guys think Philadelphia can find a way to win moving forward? And if you did enjoy the video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button because it helps me out a ton. But I love you guys. Peace.